Pauling will be here, and I'm assuming Councillor Mackenzie is still getting coffee or something. I don't know. But anyway, we'll move on to 3 conflicts of interest. There are none. The public forums, deputations, and petitions, we do not have any. Extraordinary urgent business, we do not have anything. Notices of motion, and there are no notices of motion. So we've moved to 7.1, unconfirmed minutes, transport and development equality committee, 6th of December. When we had a run through here, there was the issue of Councillor Robinson, agenda item 4.1.1, public forum.
That's correct.
It is correct, actually, but it was questioned clear. That's been cleared up. So do you want to say anything about that?
So yeah, I didn't stand back, but it was Councillor Robinson that stood back. So the change to acknowledge that I didn't. And
are there any other matters of clarity from those unconfirmed minutes? So we'll put the resolution is that we confirm the minutes of the Transport, Urban Development and Air Quality Committee meeting held on the 6th of December 2023, subject to the following, which was the issue that we just spoke about. I'm going to move for that, please. Thank you, Vicky, and thank you, Grant. Any further discussion on that? There not being any. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. 8.1, and so that's you, Catherine Trott, will speak to this, with urban development in status report, February 2024.
And I'd just like to take them as read and answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
I think unless anyone's got an issue there that they want to seek clarification on or make a comment on, I think we'll again put that note up there. You put that motion. Thank you. All right, so that's the agenda item 8.1 is up there. Kind of a mover for that, please. Thank you, Claire. A seconder. Thank you, Dion. Any further discussion? Not being any, so all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. Now, we've had a change in which is the Chair's report exit, which is at 8.4 on page 78. So this is an opportunity to comment on things that are going on in the transport area. There's no officers report around this. The matters included in this report, a government policy statement, GPS on transport, were advised. I think only through the media. Do you want to come forward, Jess, and talk about that? But only through the media, that could be the 27th of March. Had rumours yesterday that could have been yesterday. So, like, when is that going to be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, kia ora koutou. Yeah, look, there was a media article last week where Minister Willis, Finance Minister, was quoted as saying the 27th of March for the release of the GPS on land transport, but we've had a variety of dates proposed to us from the end of February, early March, right through to the end of March. So we're just waiting at this stage for it to be released.
Yeah, that will obviously be directive in terms of some of the things that we talked about today when we passed the LTP. Model, and again, we'll wait for the GPS on this, but we are proceeding as change sustainable future public transport model. Have I got that right? Sustainable future public transport. So we as a council, and led by Giles and also Stuart, are working our way towards that. So that's about the utilisation of assets that are there as infrastructure for public transport in Christchurch. And at this present point in time, that conversation is supported as myself and Dion and Joe as part of that conversation. And we have engaged with Wakataki. You did yesterday with James Cagle, Dion. But again, we're waiting for an outcome in terms of GPS, where that leads us to. I think we really need to be really clear, and I think Giles and Stuart probably aren't really clear about the things that we need to understand from this. Two big ticket items, obviously, the bus exchange and the Ferry Road contract. And I think, Giles, you've had some commentary. You've had some communication with Christchurch City Holdings about Ferry Road, and that will become available to council in the next wee while. So there'll be some advice on that. Again, I mean, we're making sure that we understand what the government is going to do. I think there is some support for that. We haven't heard anything in Christchurch that they've heard in Wellington and Auckland and other places where this direction's been given them directly by the minister. So that hasn't happened here. So then nothing's changed. And again, the next thing that's in the Greater Christchurch Public Transport Futures Investment, particularly Route 7 uplift and LTP, will be on that. Fair trials. I don't know what to say about fair trials. Do you know what to say about fair trials?
Just that it's going well, I think that's fair to say. We've got an uplift in patronage, from which would seem to be from fare reductions and from flattening our structure. So I think that's positive, but we're going to have a full report come back later on when it's had time enough to run to actually make some real clear patterns from it.
Thanks for that, Vicky. And I see Stuart nodding down there, so that's all pretty accurate. My way evaluation report competing well funding based on New Zealand Transport Agency, that's pretty top of bill for us at the moment, and particularly Giles and Stuart. Our contract is due in June for that, and it is on a trial basis. Again, we're seeking some confirmation from Wakatahi that will continue, but of course that's the Wakatahi board that will finally make that decision. There's been representation made to Nicole Rosie, the CEO of NTTA Wakatahi, and also locally to James. My understanding is that they do not have a chair at the moment, so there's no opportunity to get to the chair, and I think Nicole was waiting for some direction of that. Myself, I've taken the opportunity to engage James Meager, who's the Rangitata MP and responsible for Timaru, about this issue, and I was hoping I could get 10 minutes with Simeon Brown either yesterday or maybe tomorrow just to talk to him about that. So we're doing those bits just to get some top view on what's going on. And you know, that's spread. So what we're saying is that NTS stuff is going to be trialled in Timaru in December, and hopefully then for release. And if I'm wrong on this, shake your head, but release probably January, February next year in Christchurch. Is that about right, Stuart? Yeah. Very slow nod the head from Stuart. So that's that. The spatial plan and mass rapid transport bit sits where it is. That's been approved. And it's been approved and by this council, and it's waiting approval from the Christchurch City Council. Not too sure where that sits with them, Waimakariri and also Selwyn. Jess.
So it's been endorsed by the Greater Christchurch Partnership, but not approved by us as yet. We'll be approving it on the 20th of March at the next council meeting. We had a briefing of it last week. Sorry.
I thought we approved it at the briefing. Yeah. Well ahead of ourselves there, Jess. So thanks for that. 20th of March. It's been well lauded, that plan. The VKT thing has been discontinued. There was some funding that came to us from that, and it's been reappropriated somewhere else, which I'm not too sure of. Road user charges on electric vehicles. I guess that'll again be something GPS will look to talk to. Unless anyone's got anything else in terms of that stuff, Ian.
Well, I know it tends to be bad for your health mentioning Ashburton or Yellowstone, but they're going through quite a comprehensive, well, they've done a survey on the community around public transport provision, and now they're doing quite a lot of research on what the cost might look like and what the service might look like. And so at some stage when that work has been done and one of your team is all over it, and Stuart, yeah, I was trying to find the name of the girl who, but anyway, tiara. So this will at some stage probably come back to this council. So that's just as a matter of a heads up, really.
I think there's two mechanisms for that. One is that you've just talked about there's a regional public transport plan too. The submissions to that, and Mayor Brown will be one of the people hearing those submissions. So hopefully that community brings that stuff to the regional public transport plan. And the other two mayors are Mayor Bowen and Mayor Black. So we've got some really, and myself, and we've got some really good coverage in terms of that. But again, having said all that, until we get some direction set for us about what this government wants to choose, the funding available does not exist in communities to do these things. You need that NZTA support to be able to get on and do those. So we'll put that up there. So I'll move that, receive the report from the chair and the equality, unless there's further. So if there isn't, I'll put that up. I'll move that. So seconded by Grant. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. I'll move to 8.2, Jess, which is the committee chair, the South Island Regional Transport Committee Chairs Group, 29th of November 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide this committee with the minutes of the last meeting of the South Island RTC Chairs Group, which was held 29th of November last year. Just draw attention to the committee to the attention of paragraph 5, which outlines the matters covered at that meeting. Just quickly, the scope and direction of the first phase of the South Island Freight Study. So this is a priority initiative of the South Island RTC Chairs. The work's just currently being scoped at the moment. We have a project brief that's being finalised. This is to better understand the freight movement across the South Island, where we need to have better evidence for decision making, where we need to make investments, how we understand the freight task better. It's updating a lot of the information that we've had previously. Waka Kotahi has a strong role in this in terms of the state highway network. We're also engaging with KiwiRail through the rail network. They're actually both going to be invited to the next meeting in April. It's an important piece of work. It's on the radar of the Ministry of Transport. For us to look at have discussions around the freight challenges, including resilience. So it's a big piece of work, big piece of evidence base there that we need to develop. So really important piece of work, and that'll be reported back through the committee, through the group, sorry. We had a brief presentation from Philippa Cameron and Emily Jones around rural bus safety, and also including both seatbelts on buses and also speed limits around school buses. So there was a really good deputation from the two of them, and they also spoke at the recent Regional Transport Committee meeting last week. This is a topic we'll bring some advice back through the South Island RTC chairs with opportunities to options around next steps on that. So about advocacy to government around the changes that may be required, but also, what immediate changes could be made more so at a regional level as well. We also had a paper around. We also had a paper on the regional land transport plans across the South Island, and where those an update on where those development of those is at. In the pack, you'll see there's a map currently under development, which shows all of the regionally significant activities across each of the RTCs, each region. Subject to change, obviously, as we go through our RLTP processes, but this is a really telling story of the level of investment being needed to be made into the transport system right across the South Island, and it starts to show how it's all joined up as well. So really good piece of work to be used in an advocacy space with the new minister as well. There was also a discussion around an invite to Minister Brown to attend the next meeting. Unfortunately, he's declined. So we're just working at the moment to look at other options around how we can advance the transport discussion with government. We are waiting, as the chair said before, for the DPS to come out. That's a really critical part of all of this work. So hopefully at the next RTC meeting in April, we'll be able to discuss that. And in terms of the Kiwi Rail representation on the South Island RTC chairs, so we've previously had them come and provide updates. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was actually around how we get them on the committee on the group, I should say, as a more regular occurrence. So these meetings are quarterly meetings, and again, and also for coastal shipping and other aspects. So yeah, that's a pretty quick snapshot into what was discussed at the chairs group meeting, and happy to take any questions.
I think, Hughes, is there anything out of that South Island Transport Chairs meeting that needs clarification?
We've just, but it's great, you've spoken quite a bit to the rail side of things, and I just wondering, so I mean, it does look like Kiwi Rail are coming in a little bit later than I had perhaps assumed that they would be, because it talks about having already scoped up some work and then they're being invited. Is because a lot of this is on, a fair chunk of this is around decarbonisation. So I mean, is it fair to say that rail is an absolutely integral part of decarbonising the South Island freight?
You must absolutely. Look, there's a role for rail. There's a role for road freight as well, and air freight and coastal shipping as well. Part of that freight study work is looking at the entire network of freight movement across the South Island, both imports and exports. What are the economic high priority freight routes that we have? Where are the resilience challenges? As you know, obviously with our braided rivers and our mountainous parts of the South Island, that there are a lot of challenges as we adapt to a changing climate as well. So all of that is to understand that freight sector better, and how we work with the different Rail have been involved. I'll just reassure the committee that they have been involved in a lot of discussions right through. So they are briefing us at the chairs group, and we've had them at the regional transport committee as well in the past. So, but they're in uncertain times as much as anybody is at the moment with funding as well.
Is this where I can ask a question of you as well, Peter? So just on the rural schools safety work, I believe you're in a group on that. Is there any progress? How's that going?
Well, we've had two shots at this. One shot was with the South Island Regional Transport committees, and from that meeting, I took up the cause on both behalf of Emily and Philippa regarding seatbelts and also speed restrictions, and said that we would see what support there was around. And we advised Wakate through James that we were going to do that, and we were going to seek some national support on that, which we did. And we got some various replies from people around the North Island and the South Island. I think the only one that may not have engaged was Northland. I'm not sure I'm 100% on that, but we got pretty good coverage. And then we had a Zoom call on it, and it got dominated by a character out of Taranaki about seatbelts on buses, because he was a bus contractor carrying kids around, and basically hammered away at the fact that it was never going to work, and it was too much, and a week in the seats, and how are we going to get 3 kids in a seat? And he completely lost the intent of this, because the intent of this is. And then people were saying, like the Hawke's Bay guy goes, "Oh, we can't afford to pay for this." And it's not about you actually paying for it. It's about, is there support to go to the Ministry of Education, who do the bus contracts, and say to them, look, as these buses get replaced and taken out, the provision should be that, like they do in Australia, that there should be seatbelts in these buses for these kids. So that's the tenor of that conversation. There was a unanimous support about speed by everyone at that meeting. We came back and they had the same support around this table from our locals. We think that way forward is to let Kate Wilson, she's from Otago Regional Council, she's a councillor out of Queenstown, I think, to pick this up as now it's her issue, and see if we can get to speak to the Minister of Education and also the Minister of Transport, because they're two separate issues. They sit in two separate portfolios. But again, I think, was it Emily that said, well, and Philippa, that they made petitions and they got the stuff to the government and just about through the door and just about accepted, and then the blind came down and nothing's happened. So this is as much about, I guess, getting this in front of people again as anything. So I think there's support to do that, Jess.
Through Mr. Chair, absolutely. I think that's the collective overwhelming support from both our RTC and at the South Island RTC level to advocate for this. And there are potentially some pretty straightforward changes that could be made to actually ensure that that happens. I think one of the telling points was, like you wouldn't stick your kids in a car on a 100-kilometre-hour rural road without a seatbelt on. So why would you do it with a bus? So some they're very powerful speakers when they speak. I think government has listened, and it's about how can we support them to take that forward.
The signage is a bit tougher. I know it's a personal thing. My wife, she always slows down. Doesn't matter what side of the road the school bus is on, she slows down to 20. And she was going into Timaru the other day, and there was a guy doing about 130 behind her, and bloody near crashed into her. He didn't know why she was stopping. So there's just a complete lack of understanding of what the road rules are, and anecdotally, it was brought to us that when you put the signs on, you put those, how those 70 say places, they put those on a bus. You actually slow the cars down from about 100k to 60, not to 20. And the fact is that since 2007, there's 21 kids been killed. So there's no argument. Actually, there's no argument about this stuff. It's just about who wants to do something about it. And I noted that speed restrictions on some roads up there to go down from 100 down to 80 through a community that's got a lot of kids in it. And the other side of that is, you're slowing down, it'll have an effect on GDP. So, I mean, somewhere along the line, every time you had a kid, it sort of hurts. But, yes.
I think Emily made the point too on that. I think it was Emily made the point on that one that she had an experience where a driver, there was a bus stopped and the driver slowed down and abused her for slowing right down, and then pulled up further ahead. So the time taken to get out of the car, go over and have a go at someone about slowing down cars for a bus was kind of pointless. Then you actually there was less time to actually slow down and go through and be safe. So there was. It's about education as much as anything as well. So we can do the signage, we can put the speed management requirements in place, but education is a really critical part to that as well. So they're on a very strong campaign on this at the moment. So
so we also suggested that they might want to write a submission to our regional public transport plan, which closes soon.
Regional public transport plan hasn't gone out for consultation yet. It's after all the LTP processes have been finished. Yeah. So the regional land transport
plan. Yeah. So any further discussion on this? If not, we'll put that recommendation up there, which I'll move. And need a second for. Right, thank you. That's in South Island minutes. All those in favour, do so. All those against? That's carried. So I think we've got you up now, Stuart. So this, the work program update. So between yourself and Jess, when you're ready. Cool.
That's right, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this paper is to update the committee on the progress of the air quality transport and urban development portfolio. I think we'll just take the report as read. Note that this has been through the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee as well. Happy to take any questions, both Stuart and I, around the program. Yeah, just leave it at that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question around the air quality stuff. So, I mean, given this committee is called Air Quality Committee, the only thing that we've got here is the Clean Air Winter Work Program. We don't have any oversight or update about any of the other stuff that air quality, well, there's a lot of other stuff that air quality consists of. Are we, and I think I've asked it before, are we ever going to get something like that in this so that we can have a quick overview of the other stuff that's there?
The misnomer here is the fact that the stuff that you're talking about comes through another channel. So it comes back through monitoring and enforcement, because that's the stuff that we've been talking to Raymond Pink about. That's where that sits. And it sits with Stephen Hall, not with Catherine Trott or with Giles. Yes.
Under the current portfolio makeup, the air quality transport and urban development work focused on the home heating and Healthier Homes Canterbury, when that was a scheme that we were running. The rest of it goes through the regional leadership, climate change and community resilience committee structure. So it was originally part of the regional leadership portfolio with plan making, plan consenting and compliance as part of that. As we transition into the core services model, air quality more generally will sit under ERP, the Environmental Regulation and Protection. And yeah, Catherine and I have just been talking in the last few days about the health response and things around odor, around dust. Sorry. So look, yeah, we'll be providing some further advice and discussion through with council in due course.
Jessie said that we are very aware of those issues and we will pick them up, and it's a really good example of where the core service delivery model will actually assist your visibility around some of these issues that you care about, because we'll bring them together.
You know, that's really encouraging to hear, because it's really nice to have them in the dashboards where, I mean, I'm remiss to even talk about, you know, the odor as well, stuff like that. So I want to be able to see it in dashboards. So hopefully there, because I mean, just so people sort of, you know, put it out there on the table, you know, for the dust issue, Raymond Pink has revised his statement saying that there's no effect on the Templeton and Yoldhurst residents for dust, and revising that saying that under the new guidelines and under the new studies, there is actually an effect on people's health from dust, depending on exposure and other matters. So I think we need to lift our game a little bit in that, and I'd be quite encouraged to see where that comes back to from here.
Good, we're going to have a Tassie road.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, Dion, that we've never been able to have a rounded discussion about here, Jessie.
Just going to suggest we've got our regional leadership climate change community resilience committee meeting coming up on the 6th of March, where we talk about consenting and compliance as part of the dashboard reporting. So it might be another point of time where you can raise those points again with other senior leaders in the room as well.
I think that's a good point that Dion's raised, that meeting with Raymond Pink actually highlighted the fact that he's actually ended up doing the right thing by advising us of his initial letter, then he withdrew and he put it back again. So that's been really good. And the point that was made, and I must congratulate Dion because it never actually stuck out for me at all, was the advice that Raymond had given us in 2017 was on our website. And so when inquiries were looking for supportive information, they were using Raymond's statement from 2017, which was basically that there was no harmful effect from the dust that they could think. So that was important. And as soon as he realised that, we changed our website. He changed his advice. Well done, Dion. Yep. Go.
I've got a couple of questions. So first one from page 76, which is at that sort of bottom paragraph, talks about financial risks in the financial performance reporting, and talking about if Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency don't endorse our business case for Route 7, that we will still have the EV buses coming in and we'll be deploying those on our network. But in that instance, they'll be displacing some of our oldest diesel buses. But that we'll still need to be paying for those diesel buses, even though they won't actually be operating on our network, if that's what I'm understanding. So my question is really why do we keep paying for buses that will then be parked up instead of running our network?
So through you, Mr. Chair, what happens with our public transport contracts is an operator will procure a bus to deliver our service, and that bus has a 20-year life. And so we pay for that bus over that 20-year life period. And so in this instance, where the scenario occurs where Route 7 uplift is not delivered and we still have these EV buses here, we will put them on the network, but buses will then go into the garage and they're not paid off. So either we pay the operator the residual value of the bus and they dispose of it, which we have to fund, or we keep paying the annual fee that we currently pay until such time as that vehicle reaches its end of life period.
And then my next question, or other question, is on the following page, and here's page 77, where we've got the health and the safety, bus incident trend safety. And so we have report for, I think, the whole of 2023. There's a near miss column in there. The question was raised by Councillor Robinson last meeting about what are those near misses made up of, and the information we've had back is that 14 of those out of 20, I think it is, 14 out of 20 are bus bicycle near miss incidents. And so my question is, are we comfortable with that? Is that acceptable?
Chair, I think it would be fair to say that any safety related risk is something that we're not comfortable with. In this instance, we have been spending some time about 18 months ago looking at the training regimes for operators and how they understand how they share the road with cyclists. We had an independent audit undertaken of both our operators to look at what approaches the two bus operators we have take to educating drivers around sharing the road with cyclists and how they approach cyclists on the road with their vehicles. And in both instances, the independent auditor was satisfied that the approaches the operators were taking and the content of their training was satisfactory. However, the recordings of their training efforts was not. And so operators have been tasked with making sure they keep accurate records of all bus driver training and that training is refreshed on an annualised basis. And we've since had feedback from our operators just 2 weeks ago, which is the 12 months since that report was written, to confirm to us that all their drivers have now completed the training and they are maintaining the records and that training is refreshed on an annualised basis. Furthermore, where drivers are involved in an incident to do with a cyclist, be it a near miss such as this, then those drivers have the opportunity to be retrained specifically around cycle safety to reinforce the understanding of how a driver should operate on the road. I guess one of the things to think about here is what other mitigations could we do? The best mitigation for a safety risk is to eliminate it. And in this case, to eliminate this would be separation of cyclists and buses. And as we know, that's not a practicable solution on our city roads. The other thing that gives us some level of comfort, recognising that, as I said earlier, any safety risk is not acceptable, is the quantum of reports, noting that these are reported incidents. That doesn't necessarily represent all incidents. The reported instance of 14 over 12 months, taking that in the context of 16.5 million kilometres travelled by our bus network, suggests that the problem is not of significance. That's not to say someone being disrupted on a bicycle by a bus is not significant to that individual. I'm sure it is. but the scale of the issue lends us to think that the activities that we've been doing to date, in terms of reinforcing driver training, particularly where a driver is headed, very well.
Follow up on that. So, I mean, I think we know the outcome's going to be pretty dire probably for a cyclist if they are hit. So it might not be that frequent an occurrence, but it would certainly be a pretty awful outcome. So that's good to hear. We've got done some work on this, and so I have just received an update of the audit and the 2024 response. Are we confident that both operators instigate additional training if there's an incident? Because the report that I've got suggests only one of them does, but it is both, is it?
Yes, that's a good question and something we're going to follow up on.
And similarly, also in terms of the numbers of drivers, it looks to me like one of our operators still has about 20% of their drivers to go, at least in terms of delivering it and recording it. The training, that is.
Yes, I think that's correct. So what I was referring to is they have plans to do it all. The majority of drivers have been done, and as you say, one of those operators has a few drivers left to go.
Well, I guess my only observation, and I operate from a position here of not knowing the answer, is that the tone of the conversation is that this is our bus drivers' fault for knocking bicycles. Accidents caused by trucks, and when they did the analysis of actually the incidences, it turned out that 70% of the accidents involved in trucks were caused by the car driver, not by the truck driver. So I guess what would be interesting would be any information you have from our bus drivers to reflect on the cause of the near miss or the actual hit or the accident itself. Because my observation of bicyclists Christchurch is that they bicycle at 40 km/h and taking the inside lane, they're quite easy to miss. And so bus drivers doing the harness training you've got bicycle people doing stupid things, you're going to create problems. And I don't know any form of training can overcome that sort of stupidity. So I'd just like to get the discussion balanced, I guess.
Sorry, did you want an answer for that or no? Yeah, interesting comments there, Councillor Mackenzie. You wouldn't do too well in France, I don't think, where actually the person on the smaller method of transport always wins. But anyway, well, my partner was too, actually. So anyway, apart from that, I just wonder if there's any patterns of behaviour, not patterns of behaviour, roading. Like, is there any particular roads where more than so many incidents happen with cyclists that we need to look at as terms of, I guess, layout or size, you know, because I know that, is it, what I can't even think what's behind here, is it Obama or St. Asaph? I can't think. Yeah, so if you're a cyclist on there, even though part of it's separated, the buses, if there's two abreast, you've got no room for anything, you're really squashed. Or if you're even a car in one lane, if a bus joins you, it's quite scary. So I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular with patterns for roading that came up in those incidents.
No, it didn't. Noting that there were only 14 across 12 months, so it was a very small sample size. But we can look back on all cycle reported incidents for perhaps 2 years and see if there's any correlation around location. That might be an interesting piece of analysis. Yeah.
I just wonder if we should do some encouragement around the near miss reporting. So I personally have reported 3 incidents where I've been a passenger on the bus and have observed incidents. None of those were reported by the driver themselves, by the cyclists themselves. So I think you were correct, Stuart, in saying that 14 is definitely underrepresentation. I have seen in some cycle forums the sort of dialogue that says nothing happens when we report these. We've even been rebuffed, and so there's no point. which is unfortunate because actually if we can pick up patterns, that's actually really useful information and helps us avoid a really dire outcome. Just in terms of Councillor Mackenzie's comments, because I can't really leave those go. Personally, I'd love to be able to do 40k up the road on my bike, but it's, I don't see many going that speed, and it's a real diversity. I mean, there's school kids, primary school kids, right the way through to elderly old ladies with their baskets on the front of their bikes. So it's all types of cyclists doing all types of speeds. The vast majority of which are, I think, pretty careful, stick to the rules and so on. And victim blaming is a really poor. I personally think our table, when it comes to health and safety, should be really representing much more grown up and responsible attitude, and that the attitude to this stuff is what's really critical. And so
my question is related to item 9 on page 67 concerning the holding or the hold off on the further work on the spatial planning level of service at 30.3. It sounds like we're waiting again for the GPS to come out and see what's happening there. But if we get funding, that's great. If we don't get funding, is there any reason why we couldn't proceed with the spatial planning on a regional scale ourselves?
That's through you, Mr. Chair. So the current government repealed both the Natural Built Environment Act and the Spatial Planning Act. It's when they came into government under their 100-day plan. Planning at the moment, and there are further changes that they've signalled that will come as part of the review of the resource management framework, which potentially may incorporate some elements of spatial planning into it. If we were down the track to look at going into doing a piece of work with the region, with the TAs, with all of our partners, stakeholders, etc., across the region, that would be something that I think potentially would need to be raised maybe through the mayoral forum as a piece of work that we do regionally and fund and time appropriately for that work. So at this stage, we had some money in our budget for, I think it was year 3, to start looking at some regional spatial, knowing that we were likely to have a Spatial Planning Act. Since that's been repealed, and as you know, through the LTP discussions that we've just had, the budget for this regional spatial planning has been removed from our budgets for the next. We can build that into our subsequent planning processes, but at this stage we don't have any funding to do that unless council sees fit to put more money back into the budget in that regard. We have done in terms of sub-regional spatial planning, and as we said earlier, that's the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan will come to this council on the 20th of March for endorsement. That would be a very good platform, very good springboard towards doing something regionally, and a lot of learnings from that we can take into that. So we would be well placed, but again, it's just
I just picked up the end of what Councillor Southworth was saying about risk. And it's something that actually was brought up in the audit risk committee around right across the board. So I think that's really something that is important, that actually I see the chairs here, and even Councillor East brought this up, not so much specifically buses, but actually being quite specific in our whole risk profile. So I just want to actually highlight that as to what was said before. Thank you.
Do it in debate, but I just wanted to say there's a lot of negativity, not negativity, but whatever. I just want to say something positive to the bus drivers. Actually, there was an incident not so long ago that I'm very much aware of, where one of our bus drivers was very awfully verbally and nearly physically assaulted by a patron who wanted to get on the bus at a stop that was dangerous. The bus driver didn't let them on. This person got on a bus stop at the next bus stop to basically verbally assault the bus driver. The bus driver did an amazing job at defusing the situation. calming it down quite quickly. So I just wanted to give a bit of positive feedback that our drivers are doing some pretty amazing jobs, and I'm hearing some really good stuff about the drivers coming back as well. So, just share that with your teams and whatnot, that they are doing some really cool stuff, and nobody's perfect, but yeah, they're doing good.
Must have run down the street, did he? People must have been-
No. So now we're they have to wait. Queue.
Someone's.
So moved.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you. Look, moving into the political